Just hours before the start of Holy Week, Walter Reed National Military Medical Center issued a cease and desist order to a Franciscan friary, ending a long-standing contract to provide Catholic pastoral care to military veterans and servicemen. The order directed those Franciscan priests to immediately halt religious services on the center's grounds just days before Holy Week. USCCB President and Archbishop of the Military Services, Timothy Broglio, called Walter Reed's decision incomprehensible. The contract was instead awarded to a secular defense contracting firm that cannot provide Catholic clergy to the facility's patients. According to Archbishop Broglio, the action represents, quote, a glaring violation of service members' right to the free exercise of religion. On Wednesday, the Archbishop issued another statement. He said the Archdiocese, whose primary concern is the pastoral care of individuals, has been assured that the situation will be rectified and waits to learn of the outcome of the efforts to ensure appropriate care, so that the First Amendment rights of patients and staff at the medical center will be respected. We'll continue to monitor this story. And a disturbing story surfaced recently that shows the FBI attempted to develop sources within Catholic parishes and communities in order to combat what it calls domestic terrorism. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan obtained documents to that effect last month and is currently heading a select subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. To get answers, joining me is U.S. Congressman from Louisiana's 4th District, a member of the House Judiciary Committee and that select committee, Mike Johnson. Congressman, thank you for being here. We've been seeing evidence of government agencies becoming increasingly weaponized for several years, but with the release of the FBI documents uncovered by your committee, why do you think there's this particular focus on Christian churches, more specifically traditional Catholic parishes, as alleged hotbeds of domestic terror?
Yeah, the very idea is absurd, but I think the intent behind this is obvious. I think that the Biden DOJ and the whole administration are quite literally targeting people who disagree with them. And there's no better culprit group in that category than traditional Catholics, because many of them are committed pro-lifers and they have positions on social and moral issues that disagree with the White House's narrative. And so this is really an alarming story, Raymond, because we've been seeing the targeting of people like that. We saw, for example, concerned parents who showed up at school board meetings over the last couple of years to share their disagreement, protest over curricula and mask mandates and the like. But now they are literally, quite literally, the FBI hatched a plan to go into Catholic churches to try to recruit clergy and lay leaders to spy on parishioners, to report and monitor on them and to report on them to the FBI. It is just shocking.
Congressman, is this all related to that FBI memo we learned about several months ago that went out of the Richmond field office and, according to Congressman Jordan, went to every field office in the country, warning them about the white supremacy and domestic terrorism possibilities in these traditional Catholic communities?
Yes, and they actually came up with a term. They call it radical traditional Catholic ideology, whatever that means. You can translate that to people who are actually committed to their faith. But that was the target group. And so they sought to, in the memo, it says specifically they wanted to even talk to what they referred to as, quote, mainline Catholic churches to try to find some who might disagree politically or philosophically or theologically with others to recruit effectively undercover agents to be in these parishes. It really is just an amazing thing. And the answer to the question is yes. This document was circulated to field offices around the country. What we don't know right now is how far it went and how many FBI employees actually began to act on this. But we are seeking those answers right now.
The Judiciary Committee subpoenaed the FBI for its records in this matter, showing they plan to use churches as, quote, new avenues for tripwire and source development, end quote. What does that mean? And what are you being told by FBI officials?
Well, not much yet, because we began to request information, documentation on this as soon as we found out about it. Apparently, this memo that we're discussing was circulated in January. We began, a whistleblower presented this to us. We began to seek the documents in early February. They stalled. Finally, they sent us just 18 pages, heavily redacted, and that's why we had to subpoena the director of the FBI himself, Christopher Wray. We are anxiously awaiting those documents because we have many more questions than we have answers at this point. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, it really is a scary thing. The idea that the government, the Department of Justice itself, the FBI, could be targeting people simply for exercising their traditional faith. It's a scary thing. When religious freedom is taken from a people, their political freedom soon follows. And there's nothing greater at stake than our fundamental freedoms here.
No, the FBI was actively recruiting undercover agents, it seems from this documentation, to monitor and report on these traditional Catholic parishes and communities. At the same time, Congressman, the Biden DOJ recommended no jail time for this trans activist who vandalized a Catholic church in Washington state. This individual sprayed graffiti, destroyed a statue of the Virgin Mary, and assaulted a parishioner, but the DOJ is offering a plea deal. I mean, this is mind-boggling and doesn't seem to follow the jail time they requested for Mark Houck, the pro-life activist in Philadelphia, who they requested 11 years in prison for.
That's exactly right. And remember, in the more than 100 documented cases of vandalism, firebombing, Molotov cocktails through the windows of crisis pregnancy centers and Catholic centers after the Dobbs opinion that overturned Roe, the FBI did exactly nothing. They didn't investigate any of those. They didn't dispatch or use any resources at all to try to address it until the Republicans got the majority in the House, and we passed a resolution in the House earlier this year demanding action by the FBI. 6 days later, they finally began to investigate some of these. But as you see here in this example, they're not even recommending prosecution. And so it's just an incredible double standard. And at the end of the day, Raymond, what it does is it really diminishes the people's faith in our institutions themselves. And that is a really dangerous thing.
Well, it's also an example of the government and the force of the DOJ targeting people of faith, law-abiders, while allowing these malcontents and vandals to basically destroy and do what they will against people of faith. So I don't see how this isn't a flagrant violation of the First Amendment right to practice religion and freedom of expression. If you're impeding people from going to their house of worship or trying to destroy it, would seem to me on its face prosecutable offenses.
Yeah, it is a blatant violation and complete disrespect for our most fundamental freedoms protected by the First Amendment. We list religious liberty first. It's our first freedom, quite literally, because the founders understood how essential it is to us as Americans, but as human beings. There's no more fundamental right than the right of conscience, the right to live out your faith. And that's what's at stake here. And they're using the apparatus of our justice system to go after people who are doing that. You know, it has a chilling effect, too, because if we don't get a handle on this and stop it, I mean, who's going to want to go to church if they have to look over their shoulder and wonder if someone's spying on them and starting a threat tag file at some FBI regional office? It really has huge implications for our most fundamental liberties. And that's why we're on it. We're going to continue to press and get the answers.
Yeah. How will you get the FBI to respond? It seems like they're withholding information from the committee. I know Congressman Jordan has been asking them, and new letters were just sent. Josh Hawley sent requests, Marco Rubio and others. But is the FBI responsive at this point? Last word.
Well, they have to be. And ultimately, we have three powers in the House of Representatives. We can investigate, put the evidence out there for the American people to evaluate it themselves. Of course, we have the oversight responsibility to bring reforms and make sure this never happens again. And ultimately, we have the power of the purse. And so if the FBI cannot follow and respect the Constitution, they may not deserve all the funding that they're requesting. And we're the ones that are in charge of that.
Congressman Mike Johnson, I thank you for being here and for your time. And you may have the best backdrop of any office I've ever seen on television. Thank you for being with us.
That's my old law office. Thank you. Good to see you.
Pretty good. Thank you.